Hello, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. So today I decided that I wanted to take some time and talk about everybody's favorite Christmas horror movie franchise, the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. Now, these are movies that I don't love, but I do like. I recently watched them all for the first time, with the exception of the first. I've been familiar with the first, but I watched all of the sequels in the span of about 3 days recently. And I have thoughts about them, and so we're going to get into that. We're going to rank them from worst to best. But before we do that, I want you to please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and also please leave your ranking of these movies in the comments, because I'm not really sure what the consensus is on these, whether people, what is considered the best, what's considered the worst. I'm interested to hear what people have to say, so please drop those rankings in the comments section. Let's just get right into it. Coming in at number 6 is the remake from 2012, just titled Silent Night. This was made in what I would consider probably the worst era for horror movies. This was a time where horror movies were being remade left and right. From the AAA, Halloween's Nightmares, all the way to stuff like Prom Night and, The Fog. Everything was being remade during this time. And so Silent Night was no exception. And this movie, it oddly seems to capture the feeling of an 80s slasher well, with the gratuitous nudity and, inventive kills. But when you translate that to a modern for the time anyway, slasher movie, it just doesn't really work for me. The movie has this sort of glossy look to it, and it just feels kind of mean-spirited, which, not foreign to this franchise, but it didn't make for an enjoyable watch for me. The story is completely different from the original, so it's going in new directions, but I just don't think I enjoyed those directions. So for that reason, the remake is at number 6. Coming in at 5th place is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. If you're at all familiar with this franchise, then you probably know that this movie, up until 40 minutes in, it's just recycled footage from the first movie. Even just calling this a movie is kind of being generous, because you don't get new stuff until after that 40-minute mark. And so, for that reason, you can't even really watch this back-to-back with the first one, because you're just watching the same stuff that you've already seen. Billy's brother, Ricky, is just kind of giving his feedback on it as it plays out on screen via voiceover. So when you do get to the new footage, it's basically just Ricky in a mental asylum, kind of giving his thoughts on the whole situation and how he wound up in the asylum. So the new stuff that you do get with Ricky, none of it is really Christmas-oriented, which for me is a big negative. When I watch Christmas horror movies, I like there to be some Christmas atmosphere. The movie doesn't need to be shoving Christmas down your face, but as long as I can tell that it's taking place during Christmas, then that's what I'm looking for. And the majority of this, it could be called a different thing, and I would never say, oh, this is a Christmas horror movie. You just don't get that. So for those reasons, it is at number 5. Coming in 4th place is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, The Toy Maker. So this one stars Mickey Rooney, famously, who was apparently a legendary actor in his time. I don't think I've ever seen anything that he's been in, but he ironically wrote a letter to somebody back when the first movie came out, expressing his distaste for the first movie and how he found it offensive. If you don't know, the first movie was only in theaters for a week back in the 80s and received a lot of backlash from, Christian groups and, moms against, that sort of thing. And so for him to be in this movie, kind of funny. The movie itself, I do hear that people sort of like this one. For me, it just didn't really do much for me. It does have Christmas things in it. The movie is about Mickey Rooney's character and his son, who operate a toy store, so there are people, buying Christmas presents, and you've got that sort of thing going on. And the movie itself is called The Toy Maker, so you have these killer toys, killing people throughout the movie, and the execution of that is not really, it falls flat for me. I understand that this is like low budget, straight to video, that sort of thing, so I I have certain expectations in my mind. You know, my expectations are level when I go into movies like this, but I feel like they could have done some more with that premise, but they just didn't really reach those heights that I was hoping for, so that's why it's at number 4. Coming in third place is Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 4, Initiation. Now, this movie is directed by Brian Yuzna, and if you're familiar with his movies, then you kind of know what you're getting into, because he has something that he brings to the table with almost all of his movies, particularly Society in this case, because this feels like Brian Yuzna made Society and then he wanted to make a sequel to that, and he didn't care how he was going to do it, he was going to get that shit done. In this movie, you have a lot of Society coming through. You've got this weird cult, you've got weird sex stuff happening, people are gross and oily and covered in some sort of substance. I won't get into the specifics, just know that this is probably the least Christmas atmosphere out of the whole franchise, and despite that, I still put it at this part of my ranking because I respect sort of the audacity of Brian Yuzna to just say, hey, I know this is Silent Night, Deadly Night, but I'm gonna do my weird cult bug witch movie instead. Hope that's cool. So for those reasons, I do put it this high in the ranking. I don't know if I would rewatch it during Christmas time. As I said, not a lot of Christmas stuff going on. I could actually see myself watching this during different parts of the year because it is so disconnected from those seasonal themes. Coming in second place, we have Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3, Better Watch Out. Now, this was the first one I watched for my review of this franchise, and so I didn't know what to expect going into these, and I found myself pleasantly surprised with how much I actually liked this movie. It stars Bill Moseley playing Ricky from the second movie, and after the events of that movie, he is now in a coma, and they have had to surgically reconstruct his brain, and he's wearing this brain cap with some orange liquid floating around in there, and he doesn't say much. So the protagonist is an actress named Samantha Scully. I don't remember her actual character's name, but she stands out to me because she looks a lot like Jennifer Connelly from the movie Phenomena, which I'm a big fan of. And in this movie, her character is blind and possibly psychic. She's being used in part of a medical study by this doctor character who is overseeing Ricky's rehabilitation, and he's doing these tests to have Samantha Scully's character connect with him while he's in his comatose state, and they are somehow connecting on some sort of psychic level. Basically what happens is Samantha Scully's character goes off to visit her grandma with her brother, and Ricky awakens from his coma and chases after them. This movie follows a lot of the beats from Halloween. You have an escaped patient from a mental facility going after a girl. You have the doctor of the escaped patient also going after the patient. So it feels kind of like Halloween. You've got elements from Phenomena. All in all, the end result is a movie that I've found myself surprisingly into and will definitely be rewatching around Christmas time. And so, in first place, you probably saw it coming, the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. This is a movie that I watched for the first time probably about 3 years ago when I started getting more active in horror spaces on the internet, Facebook groups, Instagram, that sort of thing. And people put this up along with Black Christmas as necessary viewing for the holiday season. And it took me multiple viewings before I really started to get into it. It's very mean-spirited, but there is a lot of Christmas atmosphere in the movie. You, of course, have the character Billy running around in a Santa costume, killing people. That's like the elevator pitch for this movie. You know, if you haven't seen it, people say, oh, it's great, it's Santa Claus running around killing people. And on a surface level, that is what you have going on here. And so, if that sounds like something you would be into, this is something that you should absolutely watch around Christmas time if you like Christmas horror. The bench for Christmas horror is not super stacked. You know, you have Black Christmas, you've got Krampus, and then you've got this. I think those are the movies to watch around this time of year. But yeah, this is the one that started it all, this weird, bizarre franchise that probably will never get another movie from, so this is what we've got to watch for the foreseeable future. So I think it's a It's a damn entertaining movie. It's not quite on the levels of something like Black Christmas. It's not nearly as subtle or atmospheric or suspenseful, but it is fun and it is worth a watch. So, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1 is number 1. So that's it, guys. That's my Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise ranking. I'm interested to hear all of your rankings, so please leave those down in the comments. Let me know. Do you think I need to revisit any of these? Is something too low? Is something too high? Any and all feedback is accepted and appreciated, so please leave those comments and consider subscribing if you like this sort of thing. I'm still experimenting with different stuff, collection videos, rankings like this, and the bigger video essays I am still doing. I'm working on another one at the moment. It should be up probably sometime in January, so stay tuned for that. And yeah. Take care and watch more movies.